so the area that most of you are probably struggling with is contact. And contact that is the same each and every time. Now, different levels of golfers, so the better golfer hits the golf ball the same more often than not. If you are somebody who is inconsistent, then you really need to pay attention to this video, because I'm going to show you how to use your trail arm, or for most of us right-handed golfers, this right arm, to consistently strike that golf ball each and every time. So to get consistent contact, what we need to do is need to find a way to get the club head to strike an inch beyond the ball pretty much each and every time. So as I make some practice swings here, I'm not going to allow the club to come down here, or even underneath the ball. I've got to try and find a way to direct it, so I'm going to be striking past the ball. Doing that is going to give me a nice strike. It's going to give me that sort of compression, that lovely sound on the back of the ball, that thing that we want to be happening more often than not. Now, theoretically, if I was to just keep my arms pretty straight, then that would seem like a pretty easy thing to be able to do. However, the complexity in golf is it's not quite that simple. And the reason why is that if I keep my arms dead straight, then, well, I can't swing back very far and I wouldn't be able to produce any club head speed. See, my trail arm needs to bend and it needs to fold, because as this arm bends, what it does is it helps me produce a couple of things. It helps me produce wrist cock. Now, wrist cock is this motion here, and this is your speed. So as I allow, if I do a couple of swings left hand only now, you can see as I allow this action to happen and this action to happen, can you hear that whipping sound? Okay, now if I take that away, it's not quite the same as that. So if I don't allow my trail arm to bend, then I can't produce that wrist cock move. So that's the first thing that it's going to do. Allowing it to fold is going to help me produce that wrist cock, but also what it's going to do is it's going to help me swing obviously much further back. If I straighten this arm again, I end up in a position like this. So this arm has to fold in the backswing position to help you produce wrist cock, but also just to help you elevate the club further back. Now, if we take a look at somebody like Ben Hogan, Ben Hogan was somebody who would be deemed to have a slightly flatter backswing position. And again, what I mean by this is as I swing the club back, where my lead arm would be, so let's say a pretty textbook position would be through the shoulder line. If I was to swing more this way, this is a more upright backswing position, this is a flatter backswing position. Now, Hogan was somebody who had a much flatter backswing position. So if I now put my right hand back on the club and now take my left hand off, this is why Hogan would appear to have an upper arm relationship which is very close to his body, and he would also have a position of his elbow being much lower down compared to, say, somebody like Jack Nicklaus that would be much more up here, more this way. Now, for the basis of this exercise and for the basis of this video, I want you to try and prioritize the feeling of your upper arm staying much more connected to your body, because I think it will help you with the contact. So we are trying to imagine that we're swinging a little bit more like Hogan, where our arms are a little bit more connected to our body. And this is how I want you to do it. I want you to make some golf swings where you put your lead arm on your upper arm. So you can see the way my left hand is on my right upper arm, like so. Now, there's going to be a little bit of wiggle room here. So I'm not going to literally keep this thing connected, because if I do, I'm not going to feel like, well, it's going to feel overly restricted. So I'm going to allow my upper arm to move a little bit to the side of my body. Now, some of you might prefer to put your left hand underneath your right armpit, so you still feel connection, meaning not this, but at the same token, it doesn't feel too rigid. I'm going to go back to the first bit. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of just swing this back, and I'm just going to allow my arm to bend to about 90 degrees. So you can see here the way the relationship between my upper and lower arm is at about 90 degrees. And I've just allowed my wrist to hinge as well there, okay? That helps me keep the golf club moving nicely on plane. But the key emphasis is I'm folding my arm. Fold. Fold. Not straight, not awkward, not pulling it up out of position. I'm taking it back and I'm folding my arm to that 90 degree so I can comfortably keep my left arm in contact with my upper arm. It's not pulling away. Now, all I need to do in the downswing is just get the feeling of this staying nice and close to my body as I allow, see the way, watch this, see the way I straighten that there. Okay, so that's now straightening. So can you see the way as I keep this upper arm close and I allow the angle between the upper and the lower arm to widen, you see the way as I'm doing that, I can still get that nice contact on the back of the golf ball every time. And what some people think is when they miss the ball or they miss hit it, they think, oh, it's because I've stood up. It's not. I know loads of golfers that are great ball strikers that stand up. Standing up will just change the direction the club finishes in. So golfers that are a bit more this way will have a more vertical club than people that learn to stay in posture. But you can still strike the ball there. So if you are bad at ball striking, it's because what you're doing is, instead of folding this arm and moving it down as I'm demonstrating, what you're doing is you're pulling the club like this. So that upper arm moves away, and then that's when you end up with these high hands here. And that's when you're pulling that club up. So as long as you prioritise keeping that upper arm close, and then you just make some swings where you allow that arm to widen as you come down. And don't get me wrong, concentrate on where you're trying to strike. Let that club drop. But as long as you do that, you should find that you pretty much naturally turn pretty well through the golf ball. Now, that's what we're doing. There is one last little piece of the puzzle here, and it's what I'm doing in this position. Release. Okay, so when I set up to the golf ball, imagine I'm going to hit towards this wall here. I've said keep this arm close. If I allow this arm to fold, you are probably going to find that you're going to naturally swing the club pretty close to plane. But as I mentioned earlier, see, my wrist position helps me get the club shaft parallel towards this plane line. So as I allow my arm now to release, see the way the club drops nicely on plane, and then as I swing through, just flip this round, as I want to keep swinging through, I need to keep the club moving on plane. So I need to allow my arm to roll, and doing that is what's going to give me a lovely whipping sensation. So loading it, unloading it, loading it, unloading it. And if you can do that, not only are you going to find consistent contact where you're able to strike the ground every time, you're going to end up getting a lovely feeling in this right hand to help your lead arm stay nice and straight, but you're also going to control that club face as well, as long as you're finishing in a position which looks a little bit more like this and getting rid of this type of motion here. So fold the arm, practice this drill, think about Hogan when you're doing it and the connection that he had, and you should become a much, much better ball striker. See you soon.